The president-elect saying if his proposed tariffs kill Canada's economy, we should become the 51st U.S. state, with Justin Trudeau as governor. Trudeau today briefed the opposition on that meeting.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew down to Mar-a-Lago. That meeting did not appear to go well.
The president was telling jokes. The president was teasing us. It was, of course, on that issue, in no way a serious comment. We had a discussion.
President-elect Trump says he will impose 25% tariffs on day one against our neighbors, Canada and Mexico.
Did Donald Trump really propose making Canada the 51st state? Or was this just another example of Trump's signature humor? Whatever it was, the shocking suggestion left Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his delegation nervously laughing and the world buzzing. It all happened at a private dinner last week, where the two leaders met to discuss looming tariffs that could devastate Canada's economy. But what started as a high-stakes negotiation quickly veered into uncharted territory, with Trump tossing out what many are calling one of his wildest proposals yet. Why did Trudeau fly to Florida on such short notice? What exactly did Trump say over cocktails and crab? And more importantly, was it all just a joke? Or is there a deeper, strategic meaning behind the 51st state comment? In this video, we'll break down the bizarre Mar-a-Lago meeting, Trump's tariff threats, and the impact this could have on Canada's future. Stick around, because things are about to get interesting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more insightful analysis on Canada's economy, society, and current events. Why did Trudeau meet Trump? The relationship between Canada and the United States has always been close, but it has also had its share of challenges. Roughly 75% of Canada's total exports go to the U.S., making it Canada's largest trading partner by far. This interdependence means that any disruption in trade can have massive economic consequences for both countries. That's why alarm bells rang across Canada when Trump, in a characteristically blunt statement, announced his intention to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. The proposed tariffs would apply to everything from cars and lumber to agricultural products and oil, key industries that drive Canada's economy. Experts warned that the economic fallout would be catastrophic, with Canadian businesses facing higher costs and reduced competitiveness in their largest market. Faced with this looming crisis, Trudeau took swift action. He made an unannounced trip to Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, hoping to defuse the situation before it escalated. The visit came just days after a tense phone call between the two leaders, during which Trump made it clear that he expected changes to border security and trade practices. Trudeau arrived with a clear mission: to convince Trump that the tariffs would harm not only Canada, but also American consumers. Yet, as the evening unfolded, it became clear that this wasn't going to be a straightforward negotiation. Trump's unconventional style, mixing tough rhetoric with offbeat humor, would make this a meeting Trudeau would never forget. What really happened? The discussion began with Trump airing his grievances. He accused Canada of failing to secure its borders, claiming that large amounts of drugs and illegal immigrants were pouring into the U.S. from the north. He also zeroed in on what he called the massive trade deficit with Canada, which he estimated at over $100 billion, though economists have frequently disputed these figures. Trudeau pushed back, arguing that Canada had taken significant steps to address cross-border issues and emphasizing the deeply integrated supply chains between the two nations. He warned that a 25% tariff on Canadian goods would devastate Canada's economy, hurting not only Canadian businesses, but also American consumers who rely on those imports. It was during this heated back and forth that Trump delivered his now infamous line. With a characteristic mix of bravado and humor, he suggested that if Canada's economy couldn't survive without ripping off the U.S., maybe it should just become the 51st state. The comment reportedly caught Trudeau and his delegation off guard, eliciting nervous laughter around the table. Trump, however, didn't stop there. He mused that Trudeau could remain Prime Minister, albeit as a governor, and even joked about splitting Canada into two states, one liberal, one conservative. Despite the lighthearted delivery, Trump's words carried an edge. By proposing such an outrageous idea, He seemed to underline his frustration with Canada's trade policies and border security. It was classic Trump, mixing humor with a pointed message to keep his counterpart off balance. The rest of the nearly 3-hour dinner alternated between serious policy discussions and moments of levity. By the end, both sides described the meeting as productive, though no concrete agreements were reached. Trudeau later called it an excellent conversation, while Trump praised the warm and positive tone of the talks. Still, the 51st state comment lingered in the background, raising questions about its meaning and intent. The serious stakes behind the jokes? Trump's suggestion that Canada become the 51st state might have sounded like a joke, but it reflected a larger truth about the power dynamics at play. For Trump, humor has always been a tool in negotiations, a way to throw his counterparts off balance while driving home his demands. But beneath the laughter lay serious stakes for both nations. For Canada, the threat of a 25% tariff is no laughing matter. With nearly 75% of its exports going to the U.S., Canada's economy is deeply tied to its southern neighbor. A tariff of this magnitude would increase costs for Canadian goods, making them less competitive in the U.S. market. Industries like automotive manufacturing, oil production, and agriculture would bear the brunt of the impact, with ripple effects leading to potential job losses and economic downturns. Trump's remarks also highlighted his broader frustration with trade imbalances and border issues. Whether or not his claim of a $100 billion trade deficit with Canada was accurate, it was clear he wanted to reshape the terms of the relationship. The 51st state comment, as absurd as it seemed, underscored his belief that Canada relied too heavily on the U.S. and needed to make significant concessions. For Trudeau, the challenge was to navigate Trump's unconventional style without appearing weak. Laughing off the 51st state suggestion may have diffused the moment, but it didn't resolve the underlying tension. Canada's leadership faced the difficult task of addressing Trump's concerns while protecting their country's economic sovereignty. The stakes went beyond economics. Trump's comments reflected a willingness to use drastic measures, or at least the threat of them, to achieve his goals. This meeting was a reminder that, for all its lighthearted moments, the U.S.-Canada relationship remains vulnerable to the unpredictable currents of political power. How would tariffs impact Canada? The potential consequences of a 25% tariff on Canadian goods were nothing short of catastrophic. With the United States accounting for over 75% of Canada's exports, such a move would ripple through every major sector of the Canadian economy. For industries like automotive manufacturing, energy production, and agriculture, the stakes were especially high. Consider Canada's auto industry, a cornerstone of its economy. Cars and car parts are produced through highly integrated supply chains that cross the U.S.-Canada border multiple times during manufacturing. A 25% tariff would effectively act as a massive tax on every crossing, raising costs for manufacturers and, ultimately, consumers. Vehicles that were once affordable would become prohibitively expensive, threatening jobs on both sides of the border. The energy sector faced similar risks. Canada is one of the largest suppliers of crude oil to the U.S., with pipelines and refineries deeply linked across the border. A tariff would disrupt this flow, forcing energy companies to pass costs on to consumers or find alternative buyers, a challenging prospect given the infrastructure in place. Agriculture was also in the crosshairs. Canadian farms export vast quantities of grain, dairy, and produce to the U.S., with many American grocery stores relying on these goods. A tariff would drive up food prices, squeezing household budgets for millions of Americans and Canadians alike. Beyond specific industries, the overall economic impact of a tariff would be profound. Higher costs would likely lead to reduced production, job losses, and slower economic growth. Meanwhile, retaliatory measures from Canada could trigger a trade war, further straining the relationship between the two nations. In short, Trump's tariff threats weren't just bluster. They carried the potential to reshape the economic landscape of North America. Canadian and U.S. reactions? In the wake of the Mar-a-Lago meeting, reactions to Trump's comments ranged from dismissive to deeply concerned. Canadian officials downplayed the significance of the 51st state remark, labeling it as a light-hearted joke. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who attended the dinner, described the conversation as warm and productive, insisting that the comment was in no way serious. Trudeau himself took a diplomatic approach, avoiding direct questions about the remark, while emphasizing the importance of Canada's relationship with the U.S. He described the meeting as an excellent conversation and focused on framing the talks as a step toward resolving the tariff issue. However, opposition leaders in Canada were less optimistic, calling for stronger action to protect the country's economic interests. In the U.S., Trump's comments received a mixed reception. Supporters praised his directness and willingness to challenge traditional diplomacy, while critics accused him of undermining a crucial ally. Economic analysts warned of the consequences of escalating trade tensions, noting that any tariffs on Canadian goods would ultimately hurt American consumers as well. Bluff or real threat? Donald Trump's comments about Canada becoming the 51st state might have seemed outlandish, but they fit neatly into his broader strategy of negotiation. Escalate to de-escalate. Trump has long used bold, sometimes provocative statements as leverage to unsettle his counterparts and gain the upper hand in discussions. The Mar-a-Lago dinner was no exception. This tactic isn't new for Trump. During his first term, he repeatedly threatened harsh measures, like pulling out of NAFTA or imposing steep tariffs, to pressure trade partners into renegotiating deals on terms more favorable to the U.S. In most cases, the threats were never fully realized, but they often succeeded in extracting concessions. Economic analysts have described this approach as strategic unpredictability, with Trump keeping allies and adversaries guessing about what he might do next. In the case of Canada, the threat of a 25% tariff was serious enough to prompt Trudeau's emergency trip to Florida. While Trump's 51st state comment may have been made in jest, his demands for changes in trade and border policies were not. Whether the tariff threat was a genuine plan or a negotiating tactic, it served its purpose: to put Canada on notice and make it clear that Trump was willing to shake up the status quo to achieve his goals. The Mar-a-Lago meeting between Trump and Trudeau was a mix of high-stakes diplomacy and unexpected theatrics. Trump's 51st state remark may have been a joke, but it reflected deeper frustrations about trade imbalances and border security. For Canada, the stakes couldn't be higher, with its economy deeply tied to the unpredictable whims of its southern neighbor. So, was Trump serious, or was it all just part of his signature negotiating style? One thing is certain: the U.S.-Canada relationship remains as complex and critical as ever. What do you think? Joke or power play? Let us know in the comments below.